Good morning. Welcome back to Member Focus Mondays. We're going to let everybody get a little chance to sign on here, and we'll start right at 9:01. As you get on, of course, today we're talking about TREC advertising rules. So if you already have questions in mind that you'd like us to answer today, please go ahead and type those into the comments section. So we'll get started in a little less than a minute here. And you can see in the top left-hand corner. Just the people that I'm connected with. You see all the eyes up there. All right. Just about 9:01. So we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Yeah, thank you. First, I guess, if you want to introduce yourself for us.
I'm Grant Harpold, and I'm legal counsel to HAR.
Okay, great. So Grant's here today for Member Focus Monday. Our focus today is obviously TREC advertising rules, how to stay compliant, because obviously it's very important. So we have some questions already prepared that we'd like to talk to Grant about. But again, if you have questions, please type them into the comment section so that Grant can answer those questions for us today. So starting with May 15th. May 15th of this year brought some advertising rules, so pretty recent, but some of which included, what terms can be used in advertising. So can you kind of review with us maybe what can and cannot be used?
Well, I think the most important thing is if you're simply a broker advertising, you need to be advertising in the name that's registered with TREC, whether that be your actual registered name or an assumed name. If you don't have an assumed name, or if you want an assumed name, that assumed name has to be registered with TREC also. So you can have your regular registered name, and you may also have created an assumed name. And so that assumed name can be used in your advertisement as long as it's registered with TREC. As far as a licensed agent, sales agent, if you advertise, be sure that the broker's name is part of your advertisement. So if the broker goes by its name as registered, that needs to be in your advertisement. If the broker goes by an assumed name, that needs to be in your advertisement. And when I say in your advertisement, it needs to be, just quoting the statute, at least half the size of the largest contact information. So presumably your information about you, the sales agent, will be on the advertisement, and the broker's name must be at least half that size on the advertisement.
Okay, so that's for any print ads, the broker's name needs
Yeah,
to be at least half size.
Right, and that brings up a good point. So what is an advertisement? And I can just look at this.
Okay.
And just read again from the statute. An advertisement includes publications, brochures, radio, television broadcast, business stationery, business cards, signs, billboards, all electronic media, email, text message, social media, websites.
Okay, wow.
And advertisement means, that you're doing something on behalf of yourself or the license holder to attract the public to use your services.
So what's the requirement for teams, for team names there?
Well, the team name, that's also been codified, and new rule is that the team name must either end in the word team or group. So if you have a team name, it must end in the word team or the word group. And within that name, that team name, and I'm once again going back to the statute so we're clear on this, they don't want you using in your team name terms like realty, brokerage, company, or associates, terms that they view might cause the public. So this is what all this is about, is to protect the consumer, the public. They don't want you using those terms within your team name because they being TREC, believe that those types of terms, and I'll say them again, like brokerage company, associates, they think that presents a picture to the public that the team name is actually the broker and the one in charge, and they don't want the public to be confused on a team or group representing itself as the actual broker in charge. They feel that if those terms are used within the team or group name, that the consumer may be confused as to actually who is the broker of record or the broker in charge.
That makes sense. So TREC's motivation here is to protect the consumer, let them know that there is, somebody that they can go to if for some reason the agent isn't fulfilling their duties.
That's the whole goal of making sure that the actual broker's name is involved in all advertisement, so that the consumer will know or have an idea of who to go to, or who to Google, or who to go look up on the TREC website as far as contacting a broker.
Okay. So so we talked about including brokerage information on all advertisements. You mentioned the list of what's considered an advertisement. We're obviously on social media right now. Social media is extremely popular with realtors. They use it in their marketing. How does that work with social media specifically?
Well, they say, and we can go to the rule again on that, and all of these rules, by the way, are on the TREC website, and so you can, and specifically, they are section 535.154 and section 535.155, and so that's the actual sections within the rules. And but like I said, you can go to TREC website and find information, and you can go to TAR website and find information. But on social media, this information about the broker and what we just discussed as far as needed information advertisement, it may not be possible sometimes to put it on your social media page or your text. And so what they have said is that the information required by the advertising rule can be on a separate page, or it can be in the account. So you can, like on Facebook, you can have it back in your account information, whereby somebody can go and look to see who is actually responsible, or who is the broker, or who are the people they, once again, the consumer may need to contact if they feel like there's some issue that they may have with this agent or this particular broker.
Okay. Yeah, I think there is a lot of confusion there, because people hear the 50% size and they're thinking, well, how do I do that in a Facebook status? Well, we can't really do that in a Facebook status. So they have, some different rules for that as far as social media is concerned. Okay, great. So I know we have some questions coming from our viewers here. So, and they were having a little difficulty hearing us at the beginning, but they hear us well now. So just to review, in case anybody missed it at the beginning, can you just review what is considered an advertisement?
Sure.
So we know where brokerage information should always be included.
Remember, an advertisement is, to begin with, is something designed or to attract the public or the consumer to use your services. So I mean, just think about it in the traditional sense of, why am I advertising? Am I advertising? Am I seeking to get somebody to use my services? And so, what are the means of advertisement? Well, TREC looks at it in multiple ways. They think publications, brochures, radio, TV, signs, business cards, stationery, billboards, all electronic media, if being used for advertising, email, text, social media, and websites. And so it's important in all these vehicles of advertisement that the broker's name that is on file with TREC is the name that is being used in some capacity. If it's simply the broker advertising, then use your name as registered with TREC. If it's a sales agent advertising, be sure that the broker's name is part of your advertisement, and at a visibility level at least half the size of the content information shown for the sales agent or the non-broker who is advertising.
Okay. So I have a question here from Tracy. Tracy's asking, does the broker's phone number need to be on signs and advertising?
No.
No, it does not. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. So they asked about instructions on how to post information about brokerage services on Facebook. And if you're not aware of that, I can answer that for them.
Well then, oh yeah.
You want me to do it?
Yeah. Maybe
Okay.
I'll learn something.
So the information about brokerage services is required, that they require that you have that and the consumer protection notice on your Facebook business pages. It's not required on a Facebook personal page. It's not required on a Twitter profile. It's not required on an Instagram, LinkedIn, but it is required on a Facebook business page. Now, TREC doesn't have, as of right now, any sort of requirement as to where it needs to be, what it should look like. It just needs to be on that business page somewhere. So a lot of you know that I do teach social media bootcamp classes for HAR, and in the social media bootcamp classes, the recommendation I typically give to those students is to either copy and paste the link into your About section of your business page, or something that may be even easier for a consumer to see is get a screenshot of your IABS and your consumer protection notice, upload them as photos into an album, and maybe label it, you know, consumer information or something like that. And that way it's there, it's prominent, it has your contact information, all that good stuff. It has everything it should have there. So that's just you know, two possibilities, but again, they don't have a formal,
Right.
you know, place that it should be.
Right.
So,
No, I think you're absolutely right on that.
yeah. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. So it just said, what are the, so I think you already kind of covered this, but we can review it in case anybody missed it with our audio at the beginning. But what are the differences for advertising rules on social media and Facebook? So we talked about the 50% on signage, but you want to review what the...
Well, I think once again, going back to what the rules says and they try, you know, they did their best to try to make this as clear as mud. No, just kidding. As clear as possible. But just to read from the rule itself, for an advertisement on social media or by text, the information required by this section may be located on a separate page or on the account user profile page. And so if you put it on a separate page or the account user profile page, it must be readily accessible by a direct link from the social media or the text, and readily noticeable on the separate page or in the account profile. So just what we just went over, it's you know, it's almost practical common sense to some degree, as far as you know, if you're advertising, there's got to be a way for the consumer to see who it is that's advertising. And with these disclosures that we have, the IABS form and the consumer notice form, same kind of concept. It's just alerting the consumer, or allowing the consumer to be accessible, or to see this information, so that A, they can find out who they're dealing with, and B, they can determine who's in charge and who the broker is. I mean, this is all, you know, the TREC theory behind all of this is just to help out the consumer on knowing who they're dealing with, and knowing how to address an issue if something does arise. That's the whole point of it all.
Okay. So Adam asked, is it okay to use your agent name, real estate, or is this considered implying your own brokerage? If I'm reading that correctly, it sounds like you're basically asking, do you have to include your brokerage information, which of course the answer is
well, I mean, your agent name, if your agent name is registered, you know, if I'm a sales agent and I'm advertising, I advertise under the name that I have registered with TREC. Mm-hmm. And there could be an alternative name that you have registered with TREC also. And so but whatever name I'm using, A, it has to be registered with TREC, has to be your TREC name. Just think of it that way. And B, it has to be the broker's TREC name. So the whole foundation of your advertisement comes back to what is registered with TREC, as far as your name, as far as the broker's name.
Okay. So Cassie asked, are there any specific rules when sharing another agent's listing on your social media platforms, besides making sure you share the broker's info?
I think that covers it.
Okay.
Nothing comes to mind just hearing that on first impression.
Yeah, that pretty much covers it. What they have stipulated, though, is that you should have the broker's approval to share that listing on social media as well. So sharing within your office, you know, another agent's listing in your office, typically you're going to have that broker's approval, but it's always a good idea just to give them the head nod. Hey, you know, I'm sharing your listing on Facebook. Is that okay? I think most listing agents would appreciate the traffic, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's traffic, and
yeah.
You know, of course, you always want to be sure it includes all the information about that broker relative to that listing.
Absolutely. And if you're sharing it from har.com, then it has all that information. So do the words sales agent have to be used? I heard a TREC lawyer say real estate agent or realtor is not enough.
No, and that was sort of a battleground, if you will, is that TREC had wanted to require more language on your advertisement, and we fought to keep the language to a minimum, and that is back to what we've been saying, is that all that is needed as far as the broker goes is the broker's name, and if it's a sales agent advertisement, your name has registered with TREC and the broker's name. You don't need to add anything more to your name or to the broker's name. Just be sure that it is consistent with what is registered with TREC.
Okay. So Cheryl asked, what about video? How does the broker logo need to be placed?
On video, well, it would I don't mean a link to an actual video of a property, or is it?
I think, well, and Cheryl, you can clarify for us, but if you're speaking about maybe the agent bio videos, the ones that we do here at HAR, they put your name and they take care of all of that for you if you're doing it here. So as long as it's visible, I believe is the goal there. But there's a lot of different angles for video. So if you want to clarify if that's not what you were referring to.
I would think on a video that at least at the beginning and at the end, and that there's got to be, and once again, it's almost practical thinking, because these rules only get so detailed, and so I can understand sometimes there's situations where you're not sure because the rules aren't that detailed. But just think practically that somewhere I got to have disclosure to the public of who I am. If I'm just a broker, that's good enough. If I'm a sales agent, then I have to disclose who I am and also who the broker is. And once again, has those names are maintained with the real estate commission.
Okay, perfect. Linda asked, if I text, how do I include brokerage in my message?
Well, it goes back to, you can put it on a separate page, or I don't know, in my mind, I don't know how somebody would access your account on a text. So I don't think that's possible. So it'd either be part of the text or on a separate page. And once again, it's still, all you have to do is include, if you're the broker, just your broker name that's registered. And like I said before, if you're the agent, your name is registered and also the broker's name is registered.
I think she means in like a text message.
Oh, it would still have to go what the rule says, and I haven't seen any real clarification from TREC on this, and because this literally just came out or became enforceable back in May. But what it says is to put it on a separate page, and I don't know how do you put that on a separate page, So
maybe we'll get some clarification.
Because what it says, and maybe this will cause something to stir in your mind. I'll just look at it again. For an advertisement on social media or by text, the information required may be located on a separate page or on the account user profile page. If on a separate page or account user profile page, it must be readily accessible by a direct link and readily noticeable. So there must be, at least on a text, there must be some link to this information about who you are. And if it's not readily visible on the text itself, which you could create also, just you can create within the body of your text, you could cover all this, and that may be the best way. I don't know, once again, if you're advertising, make it simple for the consumer to know who you are. Let's not make it difficult. So I don't know that I'd want it on a separate page. I didn't know I'd want it on a link. If I'm sending a text to one person or to multiple people, I want it on my text. And so you need to be able to create your text to where it has your name.
Right.
Whether you're the agent or the broker. If you're the agent, you have to have your name and the broker's name, at least in half the size. If you're just simply the broker advertising, then just your name. But I would want my text, if I'm really advertising, to have my information as visible and easy to see as possible, and not I wouldn't even try to throw it on a separate page or somewhere else. Right. I mean, that would be, once again, just practically thinking this out.
Yeah, and I think the important thing to remember there, so there's no confusion, is this is if you're using text message for advertising. Right. This isn't for an everyday text message that you're just sending to your clients. So, okay, very good. So What information specifically needs to go on a yard sign in regard to TREC rules? Stephanie is asking this question.
It would be the same rule for any other mode of advertisement. I mean, so if it's Grant Harpold and I'm the agent and that's my name, I would have my name on the sign, and then also I would have, if it was the real estate company and that was my broker, I would have the real estate company also on my sign and at least half the size of my name.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the bare minimum. So the broker's name could be larger than that, but it can't be any smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And so you know, so that's, you know, I don't have to put anything more than what I have on file with TREC as far as my agent's name or as far as my broker's name.
Okay, perfect. So that's the minimum requirement.
Yeah.
Your name, broker's name. Very
Right.
good. So Lois is asking, what is the consumer protection notice that you're speaking of, and that needs to be on our business page? So I mentioned that you can add these to or you should add them to your Facebook business pages. And just so you all know, to make it easier for you, if you don't already have these documents, when you log into HAR, log into your member portal, in the quick search bar, if you search the words information about brokerage services, they have URLs there for you. They have previews there for you that you can get screenshots of. So if you guys don't already have that on your Facebook business page, just log into your member portal, search for information about brokerage services, and you can get that information there. And you'll see both, Lois, the consumer protection notice and the information about brokerage services in that section. Okay. It says you have to, so several people are asking, does it have to be pinned to the top? I believe they mean when they post on their social media, does this information have to be pinned to the top? There is, again, there's no specific requirement that TREC has given us, or, you know.
As far as location.
As far as location. So that's why we suggested maybe uploading them as photos in a photo album called, you know, consumer information or legal documents or whatever you want to call it, or providing links, the URLs in the About Me section. And again, you can find both of those when you log into HAR if you search for information about brokerage services.
And remember, this is advertising. So if you're advertising for yourself or for the broker, or, you know, it would behoove you to have your name pretty readily readable and accessible, I would think. Okay,
so following up on the, Adam asked earlier, can you use your agent name real estaters as considered implying your own brokerage? Following up on that, he said, you know, example here, Adam Martinez Real Estate.
I'm just looking. I think, and that's the team name, if that's the team name, as long as Adam Martinez Real Estate Group or Real Estate Team, Adam Martinez Real Estate Team, I mean, I think it's okay. And we haven't seen specific interpretation, but my understanding is it's okay to have that term real estate in there as long as it ends with the name team or group. And because it's not really expressing that you're an entity. I mean, what they're worried about is when you start putting like company and associates and stuff like that in there, you know, which they think may cause the consumer to think that you're the actual broker in charge of the broker company. So that's what they don't want you to put in there. But if you put real estate or property or kind of terms synonymous with your business model, that seems to be okay as long as it ends in team, T-E-A-M, or group.
Okay, very good. So Cheryl did clarify she wasn't talking about agent bio videos. She was talking about promo videos for properties where the brokerage, but I think you already kind of answered that, maybe, right? So brokerage information, you said at least in the beginning and the end.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if this is truly advertising, let's make it advertising. Get your name out there. There shouldn't be any issue. That should be cautious. One, getting your name out there to the public, and if it's part of a listing, then two, of course, getting your client's listing out there.
Yeah, and I do see those of you that if you're not looking at the comment section, maybe after this, go back and kind of look at the comments, because I do see some suggestions on sharing listings and using MLS Platinum tools to share listings and things like that. So some suggestions, excuse me, in there from Danny and from Tracy. So check those out there. Tanya Martinez, in regards to the text message, she said she usually just sends a screenshot of her business card when texting someone. So
great, yeah. Good.
Yes. Okay.
As long as your business card is up to speed, not just. I mean, I'm joking, but I'm being serious too. You know, make sure your business card, because they consider that to be an advertisement. For lawyers in my world, a business card is not considered an advertisement, but in your world it is. So make sure that it's, you know, it follows these rules.
Yes, absolutely. Mark is asking, can I advertise several lenders on my own website? Do I need to include their ID numbers?
Lenders?
Yes.
I don't know that these, under the new rules, I don't know that anything was added or changed with respect to to lenders. I think that may be developing or opening up another box of issues relative to lenders that you may or may not have a relationship with, and the disclosure of that relationship.
Sure. Okay, so Tanya was asking, how do you attach IABS and consumer protection notice to an Instagram business account? You know, so you said you could do it in terms of taking a screenshot. You could definitely do that, Tanya, but just remember that's not required. The only requirement is the Facebook business page. No other social media account requires it, so you don't need it on LinkedIn, you don't need it on Twitter, Instagram. Only the Facebook business page, as of right now, is the one that has the requirement. So you're welcome to upload it, kind of like we mentioned, as a photo if you feel, you know, you just would like to have it there, but it's not required. And yes, Danny, to clarify with the text messaging, we're only talking about when it's in regards to advertising. Everyday text messages with clients, you don't need to, you know, include your broker information.
And certainly, just as a general rule, communication with your client is not advertisement just by definition. I mean, that's your client. So that covers any sort of communication with your client.
Very good. Yeah. Okay. So Debbie asked in our Facebook business page, can we have the notices under the About section? You absolutely can. That's one of the two places that I typically recommend to put it. Again, in the About section, or upload them as photos, are the two probably easiest ways to do that. So, do you know? All right, here we go. So do you know if the same advertising rules apply for commercial real estate brokers, or is it only for residential dealing directly with the consumer?
Same applies to commercial.
Okay. That's an easy answer.
Yeah. Sometimes I don't think so.
Okay. What about the non-branded video that is required by MLS? So I think the non-branded video, if it's required by MLS. You know what Pat's referring to there?
No, I don't.
Okay, actually. Pat, if you could clarify that for us, we'll try to answer that for you. So does the business card need the IABS link and consumer protection notice on it?
No.
No, it does not. Do you need to delete a listing post once they've sold? I think they're referring to on social media. And
now we're getting maybe into an MLS rule.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I'm pausing to scroll my brain on MLS rules. I would, yes, in the sense that it's no longer a listed property for sale. So that may cause confusion, if nothing else, or use of the listing for beyond its original purpose under the MLS rules, which is to sell the property.
Okay.
So the answer to that is yes.
Okay. And it looks like in the videos, I think they were talking about listing videos. It says the videos we put into MLS, we're not allowed to have our branding in them. As far as I'm aware, you can have branding in listing videos.
Yeah, I mean,
think they might be referring to listing photos where they can't have signage.
Yeah,
and
but
things like that.
yeah. The video, I'm not sure I'm following what the issue would be there.
Yeah. Okay. So I think in general the rule of thumb is include the brokerage information when in doubt.
Well,
right?
yeah. I mean, that's that. Yeah. At the end of the day, whether you're whether it's your listing or somebody else's listing, obviously the broker's name needs to be part of it if you're not the broker. And then, you know, once again, back to any sort of advertising promoting your services has to have your information if you're the sales agent, and your broker's information also. Your name, their name has registered with TREC.
Okay. So Terry asked, is it a feature of Matrix to brand you as sending listing info? I can answer this, Grant. So part of the MLS Platinum subscription, when you share a listing that is not yours, it does brand you. Yes, it says presented by. So in my case, if I were to share a listing on Facebook, that's not my listing, it would say presented by Christina Schaefer. So yes, that is part of the Platinum subscription. If you share from HER.com and you're logged in, if you share from the app, even if you were to share from Matrix in the text section as well. When you send text, I believe there's actually more sharing options to come in Matrix too. So, and then of course, if you're using the branded app, it's similar too. So yes, that is a Platinum thing. So Adam is saying, sorry to keep coming back to this. To clarify, as an individual, not a group or team, can I use, for example, Adam Martinez Real Estate instead of Adam Martinez Realtor? Or would the use of real estate imply brokerage in this instance?
You can use the name, whatever name that TREC has given you or allowed you to register with them. And so if that's an alternative name that they've approved, or that's assumed name that they approved, that name is available for use as long as it's a name that is on file and registered with TREC.
Okay, perfect. So it needs to be registered with TREC prior. So looks like we're getting to the end of some of the questions here. Is there anything on the horizon we should be aware of?
Yeah, so they're back to this team, use of the term team and group in your name. TREC had also said that you should not, so if it was, if I had Grant Harpold Realty Team, TREC said, hey, you can't, or TREC was suggesting that realty should not be used as part of that team name because it might suggest that you're actually the broker of record when you're not. So there's been some blowback on that, and so coming up in August, TREC will address whether having the term or the name realty in your group name or your team name is okay. And so right now they're suggesting that it's not okay, but I'm guessing in their August meeting they're going to come out and say that it is okay. So if it's in your name right now and your team name right now, I would just kind of be on the pause button. Don't make any changes. Wait and see what happens this August, which I'm guessing will allow the name realty to be part of your team or group name.
So don't get new signs printed yet.
Right. So just kind of put a pause on that. Just be conscious of it and wait and see what happens.
And that meeting's taking place August 13th.
Yeah, their quarterly August meeting.
Perfect. Anything else?
Yeah, there's also TREC wants to come out with their own earnest money release form versus, I think what y'all have traditionally used, or a lot of you have used, the TAR form 1904, which seems to have been working pretty well. If you go to the TREC website, they're floating a new form that would be put out by TREC, and take a look at it. It doesn't seem to read very clear to me, even as a lawyer. And so to the extent that you're comfortable with the current TAR form on release of earnest money, or if you don't like what is being proposed by TREC, you need to let them know. You need to let them know on their website or to the individual commissioners as to your thoughts about this proposed TREC form for release of earnest money. It doesn't, in simple terms, it's not as clear as the one that a lot of you currently use. The TAR form clearly says that the parties are being released from the contract. The TREC form is not so clear, I think. And so just something to look at. Also, there's back to going to TREC and looking at new rules. There's also some new rules about using forms that may change the terms of the contract. So a lot of times near the end of a transaction, as you get close to closing, or even on the day of closing, something pops up and all of a sudden a contract needs to be changed or addendum needs to be done, or something some little form needs to come out and fix things. And so a lot of times, you know, an agent might have a form, or an agent's lawyer or the title company may have a form to address those issues for those particular issues, or just create a form. And so now TREC is saying that those sort of forms that are not identifiable forms that are out there already, that are not TREC forms, if you're going to use a form like that to change the terms of the contract, it needs to be identified as to who prepared the form and for what purpose. And if it was prepared by a lawyer, the lawyer's name needs to be on the form. And so there's some bells and whistles now that you must follow if you're going to, if the agent is going to supply a form to a transaction that might change the terms of the contract. So just simply getting the form and having the party sign off on it, the form needs to be labeled, needs to identify who prepared the form and for what purpose. And I presume, I didn't know this was an issue with the public, but I presume TREC's reasoning for doing this is to, once again, keep the consumer informed as to what it's signing and why they're signing it and who prepared what they're signing. I guess more information for the consumer. So that's another thing to think about as far as, you know, just throwing in a form or an addendum to the contract last minute in a transaction.
Okay. Going back to the release of earnest money, you did mention, I want to make sure everybody did hear that TREC is taking public comment on it at this time. So make sure you do go to TREC's website and provide any comments if you have some. Yeah,
and if you can't find, I know they had a link at one time. I haven't looked to see if it's still up, but even if it's not up, you can just pull down the individual emails of the TREC commissioners, because the TREC commissioners are the ones ultimately going to decide on whether to use this new form or not. And so you can just email them directly with your comments.
Joyce asked for an example of what forms you're talking about.
So the TAR form is TAR 1904, the release of earnest money.
Oh, no, I think she was talking about the new form issue.
The new form, it's just, so it's a situation like if something comes up near the end of a contract, maybe it has to do with some furniture, or maybe it has to do with an easement, or maybe it has to do with something related to the property that nobody seemed to address, or that kind of popped up late into the transaction. And so the parties need to kind of adjust the contract. And so sometimes a title company will pull out a form, sometimes an agent might pull out a form, or sometimes a broker may have a lawyer they know to do a form. And so to the extent any of that is done, any sort of a new addendum, not a TREC addendum or a TAR addendum, any new addendum or form that may be prepared just for that particular little issue that's popped up in your transaction, it just needs to be clearly identified as to who prepared it, i.e. the lawyer that prepared it, and for what purpose, and that it's properly titled. And if it changes some condition in the contract, it needs to point that out within the document itself.
Okay, very good. So a couple other questions came up, and Jack asked a question that Rhonda actually answered, so thank you, Rhonda. He asked, does the team name need to be registered in TREC? Yes, it does.
Yes.
Deandra asked, if I attend broker open houses and get the permission from the agent to share photos to our Facebook business page, do I have to share who the broker is for each address? I would probably just suggest, Deandra, just sharing the link from har.com. That way you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
That's already taken care of for you. Barbara asked, can't we use an amendment? So I think she's talking about the new form issue.
Yeah, you can still use whatever form you want, whether it be a TREC form, or a TAR form, and I know TAR is adjusted their forms, or if it's something prepared by a lawyer, it just needs to be. And here's the catch: is that if everybody signs off on this form or this amendment or this addendum, and then something goes sideways relative to that document, and you're the one that provided it for the transaction, then that's where TREC's gonna hook you if the document is not clearly identified as to who prepared it, why it was prepared, and the effect of what it's doing. And so that's and this is kind of new stuff. So there's not really, I can't point to an example, but I mean I've been asked in the past to, I'll get a call from a broker, hey, can you prepare da 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 for this transaction? Maybe it's a specialty carve out piece of furniture that was not in the that was left out of the contract to begin with, and now they got to go back and readdress it. Or maybe it was, some literally a bush in the backyard that wanted to be. I mean, who knows? But it's anything that the parties may have to come up with to address an issue that's popped up in the transaction, and and you go to the forms and they go, well, we have no form for this. There's no TREC form. There's no TREC addendum. That's not identified in the contract as any usable form. What do we do? Well, you can still use a form. Just make sure it's properly identified as to who prepared it and what it's for, and has a title on it.
Okay. I think we have time for one more question here. Jane's asking, when do we have to use the bed bug, addendum with leases?
When do we have to use the bed? I guess whenever you need to use it.
They're bed bugs friendly?
Yeah. I mean, I not having actually used that form myself or seen it in recent memory, I would think it comes back to, if there's an issue that you're aware of, or that the lessor, the owner, is aware of, then that, that's when it would come into play.
Absolutely. Okay. So one more thing I think we wanted to talk about really quick was the seller's disclosure, specifically involving flooding.
I think just remember, this is just, and most of you know this, just a reminder, on this, and this certainly in relation to Harvey, or even pre-Harvey, Memorial Day, Tax Day, or Independence Day, whatever might have occurred, just remember on flooding and the questions in the seller disclosure statement, there's two questions that are very important. Previous flooding into the structure, which most people really focus on. The one probably right next to it that gets less focus is previous flooding onto the property. And so, previous flooding onto the property is just as critical as the previous flooding into the structure. And so be sure that the seller understands those two questions. The first one, into the structure, may be a little easier to comprehend for them. Onto the property needs to be answered too. And so if rising water comes onto the property, that's flooding onto the property. It needs to be disclosed.
Okay, very good. And I think if 4th of July and yesterday can remind us of anything, it's that you don't have to be in a coastal area to flood, right? So with that, I do want to just take a quick moment to remind everyone that currently NAR does have a call to action for the National Flood Insurance Program. It takes maybe 30 seconds to do, 3 clicks. If you go to realtorparty.realtor/renew NFIP, and I'll put the link in the comments after we finish here, all you have to do is click on that. It fills out your information for you. It takes less than a minute, and I promise you only 3 clicks to ask that they extend the flood insurance program. That is a current NAR call to action, and that does need to be done by July 31st, so that does have a timestamp on it. I do see just a couple more things came up really quick. Does TREC require agents to use IABS and consumer protection on Facebook pages? Ed, yes, we did answer that earlier on your Facebook business page. It does need to be there. I would go back and rewatch. We talked about suggestions on how to do that. Teresa asked, I have my Facebook page on my business cards. I'm not a member of a team. I have the Facebook page on all advertising. I also have my business card photo at the top of my Facebook page, which shows who my broker is. It is expensive to redo all advertising, confusing on Facebook if we change the page name. If the site clearly shows the broker, is that not okay?
If the broker, and I don't know if it was part of your question there, but it still goes back to the broker's name has to be at least at a size, at least half the size of your name on, whether it be the website, Facebook page, whatever. Yes.
Yes, so it does need to be there. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone who joined us. Thank you again for coming and sharing all this great information. I know it's very valuable for our members to talk about this, even if it's something we heard of, maybe we didn't know. how specific it is and upcoming changes and things that are taking place. So thank you all for joining us. We'll be back next Monday at 9 a.m. for another Member Focus Monday. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Look at Danny Frank. Great job, guys.
Mm-hmm.